At the left parenthesis, you get a little bit of help at the bottom. Okay? This makes it so you don't always have to go back to the help manual to remember what you're doing. Okay? So as soon as you type the parenthesis, it tells you that you need a start point, an end point, and then it returns the ID of the new curve object. So let's actually... Okay, so if we wanted to add a line that started at the origin and went to say x equals 10, y equals 10, we could immediately type it out. So we start at the origin, and we go to x equals 10, y equals 10. Okay. If we run this, it will immediately draw the line that we specified. We push play, hit finished. We look on the screen, we can now see that it is indeed drawn a line from x equals 10 to y equals 10, and it's finished. So that should be straightforward. There are a lot of other commands: add curve, add plane, add circle, add surface, etc. Okay? You're going to have to get into the habit of knowing how the commands start. So whenever you need to put geometry on the screen, they'll almost always begin with the add at the beginning. So add point, etc. Okay? If you need to get some geometry, so now for instance we want to take this line and we want to divide it into a segment of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We will divide it into 10 segments. Okay? We can grab this line, write a little bit of script, and get the points along that line if we want them. Now, the first thing, since I want to test out some various code, and it's always helpful to know this right at the beginning, you can write yourself notes, okay, in the scripting window for later reference. So this could be add line. Okay. We notice that it shows up in green. In Python, the symbol for comments is the hash. Okay. So 1 hash, 2 hash, as many hashes as you want, and you can type anything else on that line is commented out. Okay. It's called commenting out. Usually, if you want a permanent, if you want to say this is permanent comment, we always want to know this just means add line, then use 2 hashes. If it's temporary, usually you only put 1. So I can actually just comment out this line here, and now if I run the script, nothing will happen, because those commands are commented out. Okay. So now we actually want to divide up that curve. Well, instead of adding, anytime you want to get geometry from the screen, those commands start with get. Okay? So we can type rs.get. And you can see it starts listing out a lot of things. Get angle, get color, get integer, get layer, get line. Okay? That is asking for user input. Okay? Always user input. So it requires the user, you, to do something after you run the typically, what you'll most work with is a generic get object command. Okay? So if I want to get some geometry from the screen, we can type get object. Okay? Write a parenthesis, and then it tells us at the bottom what that particular command takes. We don't have to actually put in anything, because if we look on here, if something says it's equal to something else, that means it has a default value, and does not require us to enter anything for that particular parameter. Okay? Things that have parameters that have default values, such as every single parameter in this command. So if we don't enter anything here, it will equal none. If we don't enter a filter, it will equal 0. If we don't enter a pre-select Boolean, it will equal false. So we don't have to enter any parameters into this if we don't want to. If we want to have a little bit of feedback from this command, we can type a message here. This literally will just get outputted to the command line. So when you are asked to get an object, you can actually ask yourself, you know, I would like to get a line or something, you know. You can tell yourself that. This becomes useful when you have several inputs that you need to get from the user, such as projecting geometry to a surface. You need both the geometry to project and you need the surface. So those come in as separate objects. Okay? So it's nice to know what is what. So in our message, we could type select line. Okay? This is text, so we put it in quotations. And after I click run, you see the text that we just typed. It asks us to select a line. We choose it, and it finishes. There's no output because we didn't tell it to do anything. Now, if we want to now divide this curve into 10 segments, we need to set the return of this equal to a variable. So this right here, when you run getObject, it's going to return you the string identifier of that curve. So you would type string line equals. Completely up to you, but again, your variables, at least at the beginning, should be dependent with the type. And we can just type now rs dot divide curve. It asks for, in the parameters, the curve ID, which is string line, because when we get object, we get an ID. So that ID is string line. And it asks for the number of segments. I wanted to divide it into 10 segments. So I type 10. And then it optionally, you can see it says an optional variable, will create points. Now sometimes you want it actual point geometry, sometimes you don't. Since I want to see this command actually do something, I'm going to type true. And done. Optional commands are always at the end, those are always end parameters. So anything that's required is always up front. Anything that's optional is always later in the parameters. It again asks us to select the line because it doesn't remember anything from the last run.